It was February 26, 1991. A sandstorm swept across the desert of southern Iraq, thick, choking, and endless. The sky was an ocean of dust. The horizon was gone. The world had turned the color of sand. And somewhere inside that storm, engines rumbled. A long column of tanks crept forward, dark, hulking shapes lost in the wind. Men inside the steel beasts watched their screens glow green and orange, their voices steady over the static of the radio. At the head of this armored column was a 28-year-old captain named H.R. McMaster. He commanded Eagle Troop, 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, 135 men, 9 M1A1 Abrams tanks, and 12 Bradleys. Their orders were simple: find the Republican Guard, destroy them. They didn't yet know it, but in the storm ahead waited one of the most one-sided and one of the most legendary tank battles in modern history, the Battle of 73 Easting.
The American 7th Corps had crossed into Iraq 2 days earlier, punching through Saddam Hussein's flank. The Iraqis hadn't expected it. They'd fortified Kuwait to the east, trenches, bunkers, minefields. But to the west, they'd left the desert open, believing no army could cross such a wasteland. They didn't know the Americans had something new on their side, a satellite-guided navigation system called GPS, a technology that turned empty desert into a battlefield map. They were wrong. As McMaster's column rolled through the dunes, sand lashed their vision blocks like rain. The wind screamed across the desert floor. The men barely spoke. They could feel the tension in the static of the radio. Ahead of them, somewhere in that storm, lay the Tawakalna Division, Saddam's elite Republican Guard. Veterans of the Iran-Iraq War, men hardened by 8 years of brutal, chemical-laced combat. They'd been told the Americans were coming. Visibility was barely a dozen yards. The desert storm was a wall of dust, thick, swirling, alive. The men inside Eagle Troop could see nothing beyond the glow of their own instruments. Through the haze, faint shapes began to appear, square, rigid outlines on the horizon. A small village, or what looked like one. McMaster ordered the column to halt. Engines idled. The crews switched to thermal. On their screens, the shapes flickered with heat. It wasn't a village. It was an Iraqi forward observation post. And then, a flash. The first shot came from the Iraqis. A tank round screamed past, cutting through the storm, exploding harmlessly in the sand. McMaster's voice cut through the radio. Calm, sharp. All tanks, load heat rounds. Fire on my command. 9 Abrams turrets turned as one. 9 cannons elevated. 9 gunners took aim through the chaos. Fire! The desert erupted in thunder. 9 high-explosive rounds slammed into the outpost, almost simultaneously. The impact tore through bunkers and trenches, the explosions folding the position into clouds of flame and dust. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left. Just the silence and the hiss of the wind. McMaster keyed his radio again. Eagle Troop, change formation. Arrowhead, we're moving. Engines roared back to life. The tanks spread into a wide V formation, Bradleys in the middle, McMaster at the tip, leading through the storm.
Eagle Troop pushed forward through the storm. Tanks spread in arrowhead formation, McMaster at the tip. The sand hissed against their armor. Visibility was still low, but the terrain began to rise beneath their tracks, a long, gradual ridge cutting across the desert floor. The tanks climbed. Then, suddenly, the storm broke just enough for them to see. It was like a curtain lifting. Beyond the ridge lay a vast line of dug-in armor, herds of Iraqi tanks, trucks, and armored vehicles stretched across the plain. The Tawakalna Division, Saddam's elite. But the Americans had the advantage of sight. Through the storm, their thermal optics painted clear outlines, glowing targets in shades of white. He grabbed his radio.
"Gunners, load Sabot. Tanks forward. On my mark."
The Abrams engines roared to life. Tracks bit into the sand. Eagle Troop surged forward, straight down the slope, like a pack of predators charging into the light. At the crest, McMaster's tank broke through the storm and came face to face with an entire Iraqi brigade. His first round struck a T-72 at 1,400 meters. It exploded instantly. Turret lifted into the air like a coin toss. His gunner reloaded, fired again. Another tank vanished in fire. 9 Abrams opened up. The desert became a line of thunder. The Iraqis fired back, blind, desperate, shells flying high or into the dirt. Their optics were useless in the sand. Their gunners couldn't see the flashes until it was too late. In 23 minutes, McMaster Eagle Troop destroyed over 30 enemy tanks and dozens of vehicles.
Ahead of the main assault, 2 M3 Bradley scouting vehicles from Ghost Troop crept forward in the dust storm haze, tracking faint heat signatures ahead. What they found was a platoon of T-72 tanks, Iraqi King of the Hill armor, dug in and waited. The moment was dangerous from the start. Bradleys were not designed to slug it out tank for tank with T-72s. Their 25mm autocannon simply lacked the punch to reliably penetrate a T-72's armor front. And while each Bradley carried 2 tube-launched wire-guided tow missiles, weapons capable of defeating heavy armor, they had a major drawback. After firing 2 missiles, the launcher needed to reload, costing precious time in the heat of combat. Despite this, the Bradleys improvised. 1 Bradley advanced, gun blazing, 25mm rounds ricocheting off steel and sand. Its wingman laid back, shifting into a support position, the tow launcher ready and waiting. The tactics flowed. Bradley A provided cover fire, drawing Iraqi attention, while Bradley B reloaded the tows in the lower dust and radio static. Then they switched. Bradley B surged ahead. Bradley A backed up. In the swirl of sand and metal, the 2 Bradleys scored 5 tank kills before reinforcements arrived to seal the flank. The Iraqi gunners, startled by the ambush and hampered by the dust, couldn't bring their guns to bear in time. And when H.R. McMaster's larger force linked up with Ghost Troop, that southern flank became a kill zone. The Bradleys' risk-taking exposed the enemy's flank. The Abrams and supporting troops surged in, and the shockwave rolled through.
The Americans didn't stop. McMaster's tanks kept moving, firing on the move. Each Abrams gunner could hit a moving tank at 2 miles while driving at 25 miles per hour. Each round struck with the force of a freight train. By mid-afternoon, the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment had cut straight through the Tawakalna Division, one of Saddam's proudest units, and shattered it completely. Reports came in, over 100 enemy vehicles destroyed, minimal American casualties. It was over before most Iraqis knew it had begun. When the guns fell silent, the storm returned. The battlefield disappeared beneath the sand, as if trying to bury the evidence. McMaster stepped out of his tank and looked across the horizon. The ground shimmered with heat. Dozens of vehicles still burned, black smoke twisting into the pale sky. It was a strange kind of silence, heavy, almost sacred. 70 Iraqi tanks, over 100 armored personnel carriers, dozens of trucks and artillery pieces.
By sunset, the 73rd Easting was quiet again. Only the wind moved now, whistling over wreckage and sand. The victory was total. The Republican Guard's western flank was gone. The road to Kuwait was open. Within 48 hours, Saddam Hussein's army would be in full retreat. The Gulf War, at least on the ground, was effectively over. For McMaster and his men, it was a lesson written in fire and steel, that training, discipline, and leadership could triumph over chaos and numbers. That even in the blinding confusion of war, courage had a sound, the steady heartbeat of men who did their duty.